Hey, what is up, everybody? My name is Chris, and welcome to an episode of After Hours. This is a series that I kind of came up with in my head, and basically the idea for it is that I want to take one topic, just one single topic, that was mentioned on a recent episode of Married to the Games podcast. If you don't listen to the podcast already, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, and we're right here on the YouTubes. And I kind of want to just take that subject and go a little bit more in depth. Maybe do a little bit of a debate with somebody, maybe just kind of break it down a little bit more and discuss and kind of expound on the topic that we touched on the show. I may be doing this all by myself at times, and I also may be bringing on some guests, kind of like tonight. So tonight's topic is going to be the Xbox Scorpio, or Project Scorpio, because I guess we still don't even really know at this point in time whether or not it's going to be called Xbox. We have to assume that it is, but we don't really know that for sure. It's only official name to us so far. The code name is Project Scorpio. And so we've talked about it on the show. We've kind of given a little bit of our opinions one way or the other, but I feel like there might be just a little bit more to unpack with this topic. So I've invited two people on tonight, and we're going to hash out a little bit more about Xbox Scorpio or Project Scorpio. Maybe a little bit of debate, maybe not. I don't know. We're going to have to see. So let's get right into it. All right, so I have with me Nathan.
Hello.
Who's right there on the left. How you doing, good sir?
Good. How are you tonight?
Good. You would kind of describe yourself as a mostly Xbox-centric kind of player, right?
I would say that. That's where I like to lean. That's where the ecosystem resides that has my achievements and most of my friends. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that your friends list should dictate more so than anything where you go. I mean, if you play multiplayer stuff, you want to go where your friends
exactly.
are. You know? I mean, it only makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then we also have Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants, Mr. Sean Capri. How do you do, sir?
I am doing well. I can't believe I'm on a show with you. This is like such a long time coming. I'm a big fan.
Oh, well, thank you, good sir. Hello. Feelings mutual. So, you would would it be correct to categorize you as someone who is kind of platform agnostic? You just want to play games, no matter where they are.
I'm a bit of a floozy. I just hop around from place to place.
Well, there you go. Hey, that's all fine. That's fine with me. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk just a little bit briefly here at the beginning about the specs of the Scorpio. Because if for some reason there's somebody out there who's like, what is this Scorpio thing? I've never heard of it. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about that, and then we can get into the other sides of the discussion. So the Xbox Scorpio, or the Project Scorpio, because I guess we don't even know for sure if it's gonna be called Xbox. I mean, I guess we all assume that.
Mm-hmm. I would assume it would be Xbox One something, because that's the branding, right? You don't want to leave that.
Yeah, because they are calling this, they're not really saying that it's a new console in terms of like a new generation, right? They are kind of sticking in the way that PlayStation is like, hey, this is just an extension, correct?
Yeah.
I haven't heard any different yet.
So the way that they are referencing it right now is that this is not the beginning of a new console generation. The games on Xbox One that were launched with Xbox One, like Dead Rising and things like that, are still going to work. And any game that comes out, there's not going to be any Scorpio games. That's what they say at this point. I mean, that kind of feels inevitable to me later on down the road, possibly. But, I mean, my personal opinion is Scorpio is where this generation actually begins. But we can get into that later.
Sure. Okay, so real quick, I'll just go down the specs pretty quickly. It's got a custom 8-core CPU. It's at 2.3 gigahertz. That's the clock speed. It has a custom GPU, and it's at 40 compute units, and it's 1172 megahertz. And then it has 12 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM, and they're at 326. Is it gigabytes or gigabits? I always forget on RAM.
Gigabit would be your data connection.
That's right. There you go. Okay, so 12 gigabytes of this. And from what I understand, a full 8 of that is going to be dedicated solely to games. Yep. And then the other 4 is going to be used for like the OS and anything else miscellaneous stuff that they need to have access to.
Background apps, anything like that. That's all going to use that 4 gigs that are dedicated for the, we'll call it system side functionality, but full 8 gig to the games, that's huge.
Yeah, that's really huge. And on top of that, I mean, if you look at just this generation since the Xbox One and the PS4 came out, I don't remember exactly how much they were saying was dedicated, but every time the OS has come out, it gets optimized a little bit more, and they're able to free up a little bit more resources. Hey, developers, like when they kind of got rid of the Kinect, if you will, they were like, hey, this is now available to you. And so they will always find ways to free up more of the resources and give them to other people. So it probably would end up being like 9, 10 later on down the road in the life of the Scorpio.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, so it gives them like a buffer to kind of move things around even more.
Which is interesting. So if you compare that, right, those numbers comparing to the PC side of things, if you have, let's say, 8 gigs of RAM on your PC, that's 8 gigs of RAM on your PC that have to be dedicated between all your different processes that are running. Think of this 8 gigs that are on this Xbox Scorpio as the 8 gigs of RAM are on the video card, right? A video card with 8 gigs of RAM is like $600 by itself. So just keep that in mind. And it's going to be really cool to see what they do with this RAM.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what they do. So just based on what Microsoft has laid out on the table, they're beating this drum of most powerful console ever and all this stuff. And it looks like they're having the actual specs to back their claim up. They're going to be hitting the 6 teraflops like they said they're going to. What are your just overall impressions? What do each of you kind of think? Like, where are you when it comes to Scorpio?
Go ahead, Sean.
I think it's really interesting. You mentioned the teraflops thing, and I think it's so funny how none of us had even heard this word before. The majority of like the normal people, like hardcore PC fans, have been watching teraflops, I think, for a while. But they just threw this word out there, and all of a sudden, it's a new number. It's a new 16-bit war for us to care about. It's more than the 1080p 60 frames per second. We have all these different metrics to be looking at, and now all of a sudden they introduce this. What you really need to care about is teraflops, and that's all. We are eating it up. We're totally everybody keeps mentioning the teraflops, and that's
give me
that's
all
exactly
the
what
flops.
Microsoft needs.
I want all of them.
They're like, not only we're going to introduce this term, but by the way, did we mention we have more of them than everybody else? That's why we're introducing it. So I think that's really interesting, the way that they've phrased this conversation right off the start. I think we can get into about games and more into the technical specs, but they've introduced this idea of a beastly console. I think about as well as you probably could, especially when we can get into comparing it to how PlayStation did sort of the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right, because it was always like, okay, cores. Like, cores is the new thing. The more of the cores. And then it was like, RAM. Give me more RAM. It was like, GPU. Like, how many giga whatevers. And then they come up with this teraflops. You're like, a new thing to care about. It's like crazy. Because I was the same way. It's like, I would never really even paid attention to a teraflop. And like, what is that? And then they come out and say 6. And like, well, then how many does mine have? And like, that's not
as
enough.
many. That's not good.
Yeah, exactly. So are you like impressed and like, oh my gosh, I'm totally excited for this? Are you just kind of like, I don't really get it? Like,
I'm impressed on the promise. I'm not like I don't really look at the specs too much. It's been a long time since I obsessed over the parts within my PC. Like, I'm talking like 1998 when like 3DFX was a thing, and that's when I was upgrading my 3D card. So I haven't really looked into that sort of stuff, and I really just think about how does this impact the industry as somebody who plays games on all consoles. I just think this is a super interesting move, and I like that Microsoft is really puffing out their chest here and focusing in on what I think many believe was Xbox One's kind of main detractor, was that it lost every single graphics comparison next to PS4 for the cross-platform games. So it'll be interesting to see if people still care about that, because it's been a long time since that was a thing when PlayStation 4 and Xbox One launched. There was a lot of those comparisons because there weren't too many exclusives out. Now we're getting into PlayStation's really hitting its stride. It's got all these exclusives. Now people don't really care if the cross-platform games are, like, they've kind of moved on to something else. So I like where they're going. I'm just wondering if people are going to connect with it. Pardon the pun. But I'm pumped. I'm pumped about it. I can't wait to see, because I really think that they've done a nice job of demonstrating that games that you already own will perform better. I need to know a little bit more before I'm totally sold on that, but the fact that they've kind of addressed that before we even know the name of the console is encouraging to me.
Yeah. What do you think, Nathan?
So teraflops has always been a thing. I just want to throw that out there. But it's not. It was the first.
Just not in the collective like mindset that everybody was like in the forefront.
Right.
What other things are out there that we should be caring about?
Well,
What's the next?
The ozone layer. It's
go.
out there.
Exactly.
it's back.
It's got a big hole.
So in the console gaming space, this is probably the first time that anyone's ever cared about that, right? This is because it is a big number. It's an achievement for a console to be able to push out that much, and this is. I mean, it's not to be understated. This is a powerhouse, right? I think, Sean, you mentioned that, and this is going to be one of those things that when this comes out, And you finally, if you have a 4K TV and can take full advantage of everything, this is going to be your gaming experience that you've been waiting for this entire generation. I'm of the mindset that I mentioned earlier that, you look at, it was at 2013 when these boxes, the PS4 and the Xbox One launched, and the jump graphically wasn't really there, right? There wasn't that much of an improvement over the previous generation to those first PS4, Xbox One games. I think now that we're a few years into this console cycle, and now that we have this power from the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio, you're really going to be able to see, oh wow, this is next generation gaming. This is what we can expect. They're pushing the boundaries now. The game developers are going to have 8 gigs of RAM, solid RAM to work with. GDDR5 RAM. Because I think PS4 Pro, correct me if I'm wrong, also has GDDR5, but it only has 5. Is that correct? 5 gigs?
Well, it has 8, but it's for
8.
everything.
Right.
So they've got to split. It's only using, I think, like 6.5 maybe for the actual games.
Okay.
Something or somewhere around there.
So that's pretty huge, right? Because RAM is going to be used for those a lot of those draw distances and those things that kind of need to cache really quickly. And those when playing Mass Effect, like I've been playing recently, there's a lot of issues with texture popping and things like that. Those go away with RAM, right? Those you get that read-write speeds, you get the amount that you have, and it functions beautifully. So this is super exciting to me because of when this console comes out, the Scorpio, whatever they're going to call it, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to have all this library of 200 plus games to play right away that are all going to be able to, maybe not off bat, but render at 4K if I have a 4K TV. If not, there'll be like some sort of power mode where it super samples down to a 1080p from a 4K.
Mm-hmm.
And
all I
It should
care
be
about.
really clean.
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
no jagged lines and all that kinds of craziness.
it's like looking at a very high rendered picture, but like feet back. So it'll be a great. You won't be able to see the pixels, honestly, unless you look really, really close.
Yeah.
And being able to get the full 60 frames per second now on every game, I mean, this is what gamers have been wanting, right? Is this 60 FPS, 1080p, but now this console is promising and has the beef to do it, 60 frames per second, 4K. I mean, this is super exciting. My computer, I have a pretty decent computer. I got 32 gigs of RAM. I got my solid state stuff. I've got a pretty decent graphics card. I can't push out 4K, but I know I've spent more on this computer than I'm going to spend on the Scorpio later on. But I think that this is going to be a great boon for gamers in general that want to just have that couch experience, but also want to have that pristine experience, right? They want to have the best screenshots to share to their friends, to broadcast out with, and be like, hey, this is so fun. I'm just being able to get this quality. Not sitting at a desk, sitting in my chair, just sitting back, relaxing, and playing. I mean, that's what console gamers, we kind of miss. PC gamers have always been like, oh, I get the best Ks and the Ps. But console gamers have mentality.
The K's and the P's.
That's right. As a console gamer, foremost, I feel like when I come home from the day and I want to play a game, I don't want to play a game at my computer. I work at a computer 10 hours a day, right? I don't want to go home and sit in front of a computer. So it's super nice to be able to go home and just get on my couch, my dog will be next to me, pop up in a game and play it with my controller. And being able to get that 4K experience with everything just smooth as butter, that's super exciting to me.
And there's something that goes on in the back of, I think, a lot of gamers' minds. I know that, especially me, when I've got the decision to go, do I want to buy this game on Xbox or am I going to play it on PlayStation? And a lot of times, like, I actually think that, I might get a lot of crap for this, but I actually think the quality of life and, like, other than graphics, I actually like the OS better on Xbox. I think the online system is far superior. I like that I can attach an external hard drive to the back of it and increase my storage. There's a lot of things that I like a lot better on Xbox, but every time I go to play a cross-platform game on my Xbox One, I go, what am I missing out on? How much better does this look? When I played Final Fantasy 15, I kept thinking, is this stuttering because it's Xbox, or is that just the game and it's actually the same across both? So that's always in the back of my mind. It's never really too distracting, obviously, because I am playing where I'm playing, but I am really looking forward to the moment where I can just sit and play in the ecosystem that I think of the three. I really, really do like Xbox, but I don't want to be second guessing is there a better experience, on PlayStation? So I think that it can't be understated. There's a whole, we can go up and down the specs list, but to know that you've got a system that is pushing out more power than the next guy, that's really comforting for some people, and it's a bragging point for other people. But nonetheless, it's very, very important. I just wanted to touch quickly on the RAM too, because you mentioned that we're taking a jump from PS4 Pro. We're even taking a even massive jump from the original Xbox, because they had a slower type of RAM, right? They had just the DDR3.
They had ES
RAM. To see, it was. Oh, that's right. And so it's interesting to see all the different trade-offs that they had back in 2013 when they wanted to make sure that they had they obviously had a cost cap, even though they went over most people's maximum cost. But to get the Kinect in there, you had to take all these different things away from the system itself. And now that Kinect is no longer there, you can really see what they can do with this machine.
And I think it's interesting, right? It'll be 4 years this November that we had the current generation Xbox One. And, in the first couple of years, the Kinect really did kind of fizzle out for this generation. And I think it was just because of that huge backlash of it being packed in. And I don't think you'll get that. If people have been waiting to buy an Xbox, right? They passed on it because this whole Kinect $500 bundled in thing, they didn't want to be tied into it. And they saw the Xbox One S and thought, oh, that looks nice, but I don't know. The games aren't quite there. This November, when they come out with the Scorpio, they're going to have the games. They've got the great content library, right? They've got Quantum Break, the Gears games. They've got the new Halo games. They've got everything people want to play. Forza, by the way, Sean, that new Forza expansion.
I know, the Hot Wheels. Yes. Big Forza fan, by the way.
Exactly.
I think everybody needs to play Forza.
Yeah. So when all that stuff comes to fruition this year, and people are saying, oh, wow, I can play all these games and I get better resolution, it's going to be a no-brainer to go for that. I think the question comes in, right, is who do you think this is marketed for?
That was kind of what was going to be my next question. I mean, like you guys, I'm a tech guy. I'm always interested in tech. And so when Scorpio was like, hey, these are our specs, they said it E3 last year, and then we got this article from Digital Foundry to show, hey, they're actually backing up what they said. They're not pulling like a bait and switch or anything crazy like that. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely excited. Now, myself being a mostly PlayStation guy, because they've got like the franchises that I tend to prefer. Most of my friends are on the PlayStation side, and then just like when it comes to controller people, I'm one of those people who does the offset sticks, kind of weirds my brain out.
Which I prefer it.
So, yeah, and a lot of people do. So I mean, you're not alone there.
I'm also inverted.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, and I play inverted. Yeah,
well, yes, the right way.
Yes, I love that. That's
we
amazing.
We have common ground,
cool.
everybody. We found something to work out.
Exactly. So I was totally interested because, like anything, I'm always like, look, it's so pretty. I mean, I'm always interested. But that was kind of what I had to start thinking about is like, who is this really for? Because it's one thing to be able to just beat a drum of most powerful ever, I mean, and that's cool. And that some people don't seem to understand that. That's good to be able to say that. That's good for your brand. That makes you look like the leader. Even it doesn't matter if like necessarily it leads to sales per se, but for you to be able to say we are the best at X. Xbox hasn't been able to say we are the best at this from like a way where you can actually measure that for most of this generation. So now they're going to be able to say yes, but now they're going to be able to say like from something specs wise like we are the best. Like they're going to be able to beat that drum. So I get that that's definitely one thing that they wanted. It's like, we want to be number one at something like this again. But besides that, just being a bragging rights, like, who do you think this is really for? Is it simply for the hardest of hardcore rich people who could just have tons of money to blow? Like, realistically, who do you think is going to purchase a Scorpio?
So
I think it depends on the cost too.
That's another big question.
It's hard to say who this is for without knowing the cost, but knowing kind of how they've been introducing the information, just going to Digital Foundry and having like very tech specific messaging. Like it's not even, I hesitate to call it even marketing, but this is very strategic in the way that they're releasing this information because it depends on who's reading those types of outlets. So I guess with that in mind, this is for a bit of the PC market. This is trying to get people who are maybe sick and tired of updating their video card every other year, and they want to have what the benefits of consoles that we're all experiencing. They just want to pull people and get just good enough in the PC world, but light years beyond where everybody else is in the console world, there's probably a good group of people in there that they can attract with this thing. I don't know, Nathan. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Fine. I'm just thinking that. So who is this console for? Right? It's for me, obviously, for one thing.
Yeah.
And my anybody that is invested in the ecosystem to this point that has, like me, 200 digital games, this is a no-brainer, right? You want to experience those games, even if you might not go back and play them again. You just want to know that you can have the best experience playing those games. It's for the techies, for sure. It's for people that maybe want to... They've had their console for 4 years. They still got the day one Xbox. This new shiny comes out. They're like, you know what? I could get $100 off this. Let's do it by trading it in. It's for those people. The people that bought the Xbox One S, I don't know if this is necessarily for them, because the S came out. You can get it for like close to $225 or $200, or you could at least over the holiday time. That's still a fantastic console. I have the S, and I think it's great because it's sleek. It looks really good. It's still quiet, internal power supply, everything like that. Which, by the way, they said that this thing is going to very similarly be like the S. Internal power supply again with the Scorpio.
Huge.
All the context and everything you need. They said that they wanted to design it so that way you could put the Scorpio and the S right by each other and just take and unplug from one to the next without even looking behind it to understand where to plug stuff in. It's supposed to be that quick of a plug and play, which means that this isn't going to even probably be as big physically as the original Xbox, which a lot of people complained about. So if you're...
Yeah, that was one thing that I noticed too when I went to this generation, because the PS3 and the PS4, at least the original PS4, they used the same plug. So you literally could just unplug, move it, and use the same power one. Now, the PlayStation 4 Pro does not. It's got a different plug and it's bigger and beefier.
No.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, that's interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's a pretty
one thing that was really odd.
We were talking about this before the show, right? Cable management. We kind of like to keep our things clean. And if for people who have all their cables ran, and you don't have to... You can buy this box, right? And use the exact same cables and plug them in the same spot. You don't have to worry about remanaging those cables. How big of a relief is that to you right now, Sean? It's like, I don't have to worry about that.
It really is. I'm so glad that you guys are mentioning this because I feel like I'm totally insane and a weirdo with all this stuff. But I really enjoy being able to, even cross-platform. I've got my nerd cave kind of in the basement, but every once in a while I'll want to just kind of stay on the main floor. I've got a PS4 there now, but every once in a while I'll just bring up my Xbox One S, and the fact that I can just swap it out, don't have to worry about cables or anything, gives me a lot of pleasure, Chris.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I know just the ease of being able, especially for those people who do get like really like into it and they're, okay, I'm going to run all these cables behind things and hide everything away, to be able to realize, wait, I've got to undo all this cable and then rerun just for this new system I got. To be able to just plug and play, that's really, really nice.
My Wii and Wii U.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's kind of like a Zen thing, right? Being able to have the hidden cables. It's like, it's just so pretty. But
I do think form factor matters,
it does.
and I think it mattered
Yes,
with the
it does.
PS4 as well. I think people looked at those two and saw three things: the graphics, the price, and then the form factor as well. Well, like, of course I'm going to buy the PlayStation. It's way better on all three fronts. So I think that they'd be silly to ignore that once again.
And I think
It's definitely, there is merit to say like, hey, why does it matter? You're going to put it in your little area underneath your TV and you're never going to look at it until you're putting in a disc or something. But it really does, because even though you really only look at it when you first bring it out of the box, you want to be like giddy when you see it. And like, I bought the original Xbox One. It was not quite at launch, but like just a couple months after launch, like launch window. And I opened it and I was like, this power brick. But realistically, it stayed underneath my little entertainment center, and I never saw the thing again. Don't get me wrong. I love that they went to the internal power supply. That's great. But I mean, it was one of those things that was just like, that's really just a talking point. But it is something like when you were looking at it all and you want to show it off, it's like, you do want it to be pretty. You want it to be something you're like, that's so pretty. Now let's go play some awesome games. I totally get like the reasoning that people have for wanting things to be attractive to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another contingent of gamers that I think this is for are those people that we'll call them semi-casual, semi-pro. I don't know how you want to do that, but they play Call of Duties every year, right? They're the people that play Call of Duty or Maddens or whatever that, hey, I heard this is the best system to buy. I'm going to get it on this system. They don't really care about the platform. And as you can tell by the sales numbers each month, Call of Duty players are huge. If they just want to play this on the best experience, they're going to go for the Scorpio now instead of the PlayStation. It's going to be a fact. I think that people who are the bro gamers, we'll call them, that have the annualized games that they gravitate towards that are multi-platform, I think this could signal a switch, no pun intended, to the new system. Thank you, Sean.
Jeez.
Well, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that part up, because I think that it's the fact that this is not a new generation doesn't give Xbox that opportunity to kind of like break away from the current situation with Activision, where PlayStation has locked up all of that marketing. Every time you see a Call of Duty or a Destiny game, it's always got and probably Rockstar. When we look at Red Dead Redemption, everything's PlayStation. So it's nice that we're kind of having this gradual change into a new power system, but not really a new console. But I think Xbox actually may be missing out here, and that they needed a breakaway so that they could reclaim those publishers. But maybe there's an opportunity with EA, maybe there's an opportunity with Ubisoft when you talk about the annualized games with the Assassin's Creeds and the game, and EA's obviously got a whole catalog of games that like with the sports games that come each and every year. They need some form of strategic partnership with big time publishers so that big games are seen as like the place to play on Xbox. Because I just wonder if, from a marketing perspective, from an advertising perspective, if Microsoft can pull Call of Duty back. Because I think that matters. Gamers can do their own homework. They can look at graphics comparisons all they want, and that will be powerful. That will be back in Xbox's favor. But from like TV commercials and for the rest of the people who don't do podcasts or look into it like we do, that's still going to be in PlayStation's camp. So I think this is a huge move for Xbox to have this console, but that's an area for me that's still a little troubling and maybe a hurdle that I'm not sure they can overcome.
Yeah, that was one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up. I was going to start going in the territory of like, all right, I'm going to play the opponent here and kind of bring a different perspective. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's like, okay, the Xbox One for multi-platform games, Call of Duty, any of them really, it should play better on the Scorpio than any other, than PlayStation 4 Pro, and then obviously the OG Xbox One or Xbox One S and the regular slim PlayStation 4. So it should be the best experience. And whenever you go to like the IGNs and the Game Spots and all these other things, it's probably going to say in that list, or when you see in the video of them like reviewing it, it's probably going to have the little A, B, X, Y buttons on the screen instead of the square, X, circle, triangle, because they tend to review it on the best one, or that's the one that they kind of tout, and they're like, oh, and it's also available in this. It may not have even been reviewed on one of those other platforms. I kind of feel like it's probably going to switch to where most of them are going to be reviewing it on Scorpio, and then they're going to be reviewing it on the Scorpio. But the thing is, if PlayStation does indeed still have all these marketing deals for like Destiny, for Call of Duty, for any of these other ones, like, they can't say on their commercials like we're the best experience. At least I don't think so. I mean, typically like Activision isn't going to go over there and like looks best on Scorpio, but map packs first on PlayStation. They're not going to do that. Yeah, they can't do that. And while people like us who are learned gamers and we know what to look for and we know how to see all these different things, we know like what the up and up is. But like Joe Casual that just plays whatever, they see that PlayStation logo at the end of the commercial, and they probably just think, all right, I'm going to go PlayStation or Destiny. And I don't even think outside of one or two people, they probably don't even pay as much attention where their friends are. They're just like, oh, PlayStation. I got to get the PlayStation because I want to play that new Halo. Or, I mean, not the new Halo, but the new Destiny.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh, my gosh.
But I bet if they did that,
I know PlayStation even got Halo now. It's like they're getting everything.
Exactly.
I mean, do you think that Microsoft can break out of there? Because they've really got to play this very strategic, because just having the power, even though people like us is all about the power, I don't know that that's going to be enough to do it for them, because if they come out and like steal a game that everybody wants to play and a larger player base is on PlayStation, just like when it happened with Tomb Raider, you could say that blew up in their face because they locked in Tomb Raider. It was only going to be a 1-year deal, but they're like, hey, you can play Tomb Raider here. But more player base was on PlayStation, and they got ticked off, and then it kind of didn't work. So Microsoft can't really just like go gobble up games, because then people will be upset. But you want to do something to promote your product, because it's going to be the best product on the market. So it's a weird situation for them to be in.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think they're going to move forward with it?
Well, they want to compel people to play on their system, but they can't force people. That's a differentiation that they've learned recently with that exclusive. But I also think it's worth mentioning that I think it's hilarious that it's okay for PlayStation to lock up Street Fighter on their system, and then Tomb Raider, which arguably is a smaller franchise,
absolutely
makes all this hubbubaloo.
Can we talk about that for a second, the Tomb Raider thing?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys know any different on this, but I remember hearing that Microsoft helped majorly fund and optimize the game, and that's why it was brought out first on Xbox. Is that not correct?
I had heard that speculation that when they got the exclusivity and they said only going to be on Xbox, before it was known that it was timed, I had heard that Microsoft probably helped fund it. I never heard any confirmation, and I tend to think that they didn't. I mean, it's possible, obviously, marketing dollars.
They paid for it, so whether
it's obviously marketing dollars. But
I
I doubt that they helped pay in any way in terms of like we're specifically paying to make the game, because if they did, I don't think it would have ever come to PlayStation.
Because I think
it was nothing more than marketing dollars.
Exactly.
I remember on, like, it was maybe either Major Nelson's podcast or something like that, where it was like an official type podcast. They talked about how the Xbox developers went to Square Enix and helped them optimize and get this game running, to tip-top shape. So they were actually giving them resources in the form of, people to help them make sure that they got the content out. So it's one of those things where
was that
what?
Well, was when that was said that what you had heard, was it put in the context of they went out there to make sure it's running as best as it can on Xbox One? Because that was still a bit in the thick of the whole, everything's playing better on PlayStation. Maybe they wanted to hey, we're going to teach you how to really squeeze out the most out of Xbox. Could that maybe have been the context?
It could have been that kind of context, but that wasn't the way that it was swinging when I heard it, right? It was just one of those things where they wanted to help them because there was some issues, I guess, that had arisen with the development cycle. They reached out, or either Square reached out to Microsoft, or Microsoft reached out to Square. They kind of partnered up and helped with some developing, and then obviously the marketing budget too, because it was marketed as an Xbox game. But
yes,
I think it's one of those things where that is misinterpreted as an anti-gamer move, where to me, if you kind of look into that situation, and if that is the case, that they helped get this thing made, they brought their developers out there, and if they gave extra funding to the project, I don't know. It's not really anti-consumerism at that point. It's really pro-consumerism, wouldn't you say?
Well, it depends on how you're looking at it. In the case of, if, let's say just for the sake of argument, that yes, Microsoft, to some extent, outside of just marketing, actually paid money or did something like you were saying, send their developers to actually make the game be a thing. Like without Microsoft's money or help, the game would not exist. Then yes, in that situation, I completely agree that that is a great thing to do. Which, on the flip side, because you brought up Street Fighter, that was also what I had heard was that, hey, look, Street Fighter V probably wouldn't have existed had PlayStation not helped fund that game being made. Which is why, as I understand it, it hasn't come to Xbox, and as I understand it, is not going to come to Xbox. In those situations, I'm all with you. I'm like, if it means the game existing or not existing, pay your money, and then because you paid, get your exclusivity. The two times where I don't like exclusivity deals is one, when it's crazy long amount.
Destiny.
I don't like year-long exclusivity. That's ridiculous. To me, a month is all you should get. I mean, it just seems ridiculous that any company would go into an exclusivity deal and lock a whole nother branch of your customers out of content for an entire year. I just find that ridiculous. The other time that I don't like it, even if it's a short amount of time, like a month, I don't like it when there is a game or what are they called? Not platform, not genre. Golly, why can't? When there's a bunch of them, a series. Series. That's what like Tomb Raider. Like there was an established series and they had all been multi-plat. To then be like, okay, and now this one we're taking it back and it's only going to be us. Because at the time we didn't know that it was just a timed thing. That I'm not down with either. Because that basically is pulling a game away from part of the audience. But if it's a brand new game, even if it's third party, like Cuphead, or I know that's kind of an indie game, or like the original Titanfall, like. That game had never been out before. And sure, I was on PlayStation. And I was like, I'm not going to get to play Titanfall. I got to go get an Xbox One. And I was like, this kind of stinks because I hadn't budgeted for that, but I want to play that game. But I understood because it was brand new. It had no basis. It had never been on PlayStation. So to me, that's not a big deal.
Right.
But so that's, for me, that's it. Whenever they pull it from being multi-plat, or if they didn't have, if it's like a egregiously long amount of time for like a year exclusivity, I don't like that.
And it's funny that you kind of mentioned the how the egregious nature of the Destiny exclusivity. I don't really hear any uproar about that on any side. Nobody's mad at the publisher. Nobody's mad at PlayStation for locking that in.
I hear a lot of Xbox people that are upset about it.
Of course,
there are.
Yeah,
for sure. And
but who are they mad at? Who, like, that's the thing, is like they haven't really directed their anger at anybody. With the Tomb Raider thing, people were mad at Microsoft. They weren't mad at the publisher for agreeing to this deal.
Yeah, that was a bit silly.
We can't make up our minds at what we're mad at. I guess that's
people just want to be mad.
They're just upset. And I'm sure people will find a lot to be upset about with the Scorpio. And one of the things that I was hearing right off the start was, oh, of course they've got power, but they don't have games.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this is something that you guys wanted to chat a little bit about.
Sure,
about,
let's go for it.
The landscape of games moving forward. Do you feel that Microsoft really is hurting as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be? Like, that are things as dire for Microsoft on games front?
So before you go, Nathan, I'll bring my part, because I'm coming from the PlayStation perspective here. I very much am like, because I'm mostly on a PlayStation side, I've played a lot of the Xbox exclusive games, like, because I've had friends over the years. Like, I've played Gears, I've played Halo, different versions throughout the series' life. I've never really taken to them. So when I bought my Xbox One, as I mentioned a little bit ago, it was mostly for Titanfall. But I kept it because I was like, hey, they're going to come. It's a whole brand new generation. There's going to be these new IPs. I've played Halo, but I've never really played Halo. Let me try these things out. And I just never really got one of them to really latch onto me and be like, man, I really like this. I do want to give Forza a try, especially now with all of this the Hot Wheels thing. That was like, okay, because I haven't really been much into a racing game in a long time. Like, I got Drive Club when it was PS Plus for free, and I don't even think I've turned it on once, even though it was a free game. I just, driving hadn't gotten much into me, but I was like, well, I'm not sure about their strategy, because on the one hand, I can absolutely make the case that, hey, the whole play anywhere, like, there's no real exclusive anymore, because you can pick it up over here if you're on the road, you play it on your laptop, and then when you get back home, you hop on your Xbox One. That sounds really cool.
And it's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
I use it all the time. It is amazing.
But then there's the side of me that's like, okay, but if there's nothing really exclusive to your machine, like, why wouldn't I? Like, if your machine's so powerful and everything, like, assuming that I can earn the money, it's like, well, wait, yes, I'm paying X amount. Let's say it's $500 or whatever for the Xbox One Scorpio. It's like, but if I just go a couple hundred more, I can get a really banging PC, and then I can do all this stuff too. It's like, it's hard for me. I don't really know what their strategy is. I mean, I can't tell in my head, is it smart or is it dangerous? So I'm just not really sure.
I think we kind of like, we're all very simple people, and we start to look at like one piece of the argument at a time. So when you talk about the exclusives and then how that sort of impacts what makes the console special if you can just play it on your PC. The thing is that it's not just the exclusives that you can play on your Xbox. It's obviously that's an additional thing, but you can play all of this stuff on your PC through the Play Anywhere, like the remote app. I'm not even sure what the heck they even call that. So I look at it more holistically. I look at the entire picture as being all good stuff. I don't pick out. I think it's very easy for us to look at one aspect of it and go like, that's lacking because it's not like we don't have Bloodborne or Neo or things like that. I look at the entire landscape of the Xbox ecosystem and think that it's great. And it's hard to really articulate that because it's all-encompassing. It's easier for us to pick apart which one has exclusives, we'll give that to PlayStation. Which one has frame rates, we'll give that one to PlayStation. Which one has online, we'll give that one to Xbox. That's easier to have that conversation. It's harder to kind of go at the 40,000-foot level and go, where's the benefit and what's more gamer friendly? To me, the Xbox ecosystem is way more gamer friendly because I get more stuff out of that system. But I do, if I look at a micro level, there's a couple things that are lacking in that landscape.
And to be clear, I don't want to say like that I feel like Microsoft's not being anti-gamer or any of that kinds of stuff. All I simply mean is, like, let's say that you do have, because most people in the world and definitely here in North America, they have a PC, and odds are that a lot of them have one good enough to play a game. Like, it may not be 4K 60 frames, but they can probably play games. And if they're looking like, okay, I want to get something else to play games as well, and they're like, there's these two consoles on the market, just for the sake of the moment, we're going to exclude the Switch because there's not as much third-party support on it in the moment. It's like, okay, I can get an Xbox One where I can play my games back and forth, but then I can get this PlayStation. They've got like all these exclusives right now that I can't play anywhere else but here. And it's like, okay, the Xbox exclusives like Halo and Forza and all that stuff, like, yeah, they're cool, but I can also play them on this PC that I already have. So in that case, for people that are in that situation and can't necessarily buy every platform, but they do already have the PC and they can afford one more, there's no real reason to get the Xbox, is there? I mean, for somebody starting out of the gate, sure. I mean, the simplicity of consoles, because it's way better. I mean, like, not better, but more simple than like a keyboard and mouse setup, and you don't have to worry about the drivers and all that kinds of craziness. But like, if there's somebody who has a gaming PC, is there any reason for them to get an Xbox? Like, there's still, you can make the case that there's reason for them to get the PlayStation.
Yeah,
just for the exclusive part.
It depends on where somebody's at with their gaming PC, I think, too. So people who will upgrade their PC forever and ever and ever, this is not for them. But I think that there are people who are on their way out of PC gaming. As people grow up, they have kids. Like, you can't dedicate thousands of dollars to put into this rig each and every year. Those are the people who can fall back on the stability of the console landscape. So I think that hopefully that's where they're going. That's where I would. That's what I would bank on.
Okay.
So
let's go ahead. Fire off.
So originally I would say, to the console landscape, how does it look to people? I would say this generation already has hundreds of great games. My backlog of games is a forest at this point because there's just so much great content that's always coming out. And it's easy to overlook some of the indie titles, right? The ID at Xbox program just recently celebrated their 500th game. That's ID at Xbox. Those are independent developers on Xbox games that sometimes can find their way to PlayStation, but not always. So if you're a gamer that's looking for those independent experiences, you're kind of done with the AAA scene, or you just want to get something refreshing, something new. You want your Cuphead. You want Skylines, Cities, or City Skylines, is that what it was? You want these different experiences like Lifeless Planet or Astroneer and things like that. That's where you can gravitate towards as a gamer. That's why you might want to look at getting an Xbox as opposed to a PlayStation, things like that. There are a lot of great indies on PlayStation, but for the most part, those indies aren't exclusive. Correct?
Well, some of them are timed to Witness was kind of exclusive. Firewatch it's a similar deal. Exclusive. Yeah, a lot of the bigger ones. I mean, there's definitely ones that are only on PlayStation, but I don't think there's any of the like major ones. I think most of them eventually eke out to the other platforms as well. Abzu and those like those types of games are kind of on the PlayStation side. I think that it's interesting when we really do like if we're going to talk exclusives. I think hands down PlayStation has got it.
It's got the AAAs for sure.
Definitely. Why I would argue kind of across the board, and when I look at all of my consoles, I even look at Nintendo, and people start to rattle off all the exclusives that are really great for each of these consoles. I find myself going, that doesn't sound that impressive to me. It just sounds like we're just listing off like quantities of games rather than quality games. When I understand that Halo doesn't have the pull that it used to, and Gears of War is sort of like. This was to me, Gears of War 4 was very weak. I didn't really enjoy my time with it that much. I like the multiplayer, and that's great. But as an Xbox fan, I find that sometimes we're really kind of like grasping at straws here with the exclusives, just so that we can be part of the conversation. And it sort of does the system a bit of a disservice by doing that, because you're just illustrating how much weaker that area is versus even Nintendo with their quality of games. But I always think that it's sort of counter to what we're trying to accomplish when we say it's got Halo, it's got Forza, and it's like a lot of people don't care about Forza. Like
that's a crime,
it, and it's hard for me. I know it's awful to say, but I hope that sort of like by me saying that kind of gives it a little bit even more weight because I'm a huge fan of Forza. I think Halo is an insanely important franchise. Gears of War was that game in the 360 era where I'm like, I can't believe what I'm even looking at. This weapon has a chainsaw on the end of it. Like, it just blew my mind, and I haven't had those moments on an Xbox One. We bring up Quantum Break, which I think is great, and I love it. I reviewed it on We the Nerdy, and I think it was amazing. But Uncharted 4 is way better to me. Like, and there's a lot of other games. Bloodborne isn't even a first-party game. It's an exclusive deal with a third party or second party, however you want to call that arrangement, and it's just better. So I don't know how that impacts things, but I think that Microsoft is purely talking about specs, power, and not exclusives at this point because it's a conversation they can't win. Now, I think what is interesting though is they're introducing themselves into the PC conversation, which is also one that possibly they can't win, and they have to introduce value. They have to show us that this is going to be a low-cost proposition for what we're getting. It's going to be a lot of money, I think, still. I think we can get to that. Maybe my guess would be somewhere around $400, $500, maybe $500. I don't know if they can go that high. But they have to show that it's better than PlayStation in terms of the visual performance. It's better than PC because you don't have to spend $2,000, and you're going to have the stability of a console where you don't have to upgrade parts and parts. So,
well, I will say that
stuff.
I will say that by positioning themselves where they have in just the console space, we'll leave PC alone for the moment, and saying, we are the most powerful. Mm-hmm. And of course, like right now at this current time, like E3 has not happened yet. All we know is like Scorpio's its name and its specs, or its project name and its specs. We don't know the actual price yet, but we also don't know what does Microsoft have up their sleeve in terms of games. Because, yeah, like, they've closed a couple studios, like Lionhead is closed, and a couple of games have gotten canceled, like Scalebound. But it's like, I've got to believe that they've just been strategically getting all this stuff ready, and they're about to just hit us with games. Now,
oh, yeah.
I feel like there's got to be something. Even if they're indies, or like, not necessarily like first-party or AAA exclusives, and I'm going to use the term exclusive even though it is play anywhere, and they're going to also be on PC. For the moment, I'm just going to use it as exclusive. I've got to think that they're going to bring the pain. I mean, they're going to like hit with new hardware. They're going to hit with games. I got a feeling, because I will say Microsoft has done an amazing job, and pat them on the back. Everybody should, because they were up against a wall from the beginning of this generation. And so what did they do? It forced them to get creative. And so they started doing things like Drop and Connect and like bringing out system updates like every month, going even harder on this whole ID at Xbox thing. The fact that they've been bringing the whole backwards compatibility when they said, like, this isn't going to happen. And then they did it anyways. It's like, if they hadn't had their back against the wall, these things wouldn't have happened. So it's been a great situation. And by all intents and purposes, they're selling great. It's just looks bad when you compare them to their direct competition. But compared to like 360, like they're still projected ahead of it, are they not? I mean, I'm pretty sure they're outselling like pace wise where they were with the Xbox 360. So they're doing good, and I'm very optimistic by what we're gonna get from Microsoft this E3. And one thing that I do think that we're gonna get, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, so I want to go ahead and just open that door, is price. What is this thing going to cost? Now, I have said on the Married to the Games podcast, I said $600. Everybody has said that I'm insane, but I was basing it off of like, look, the parts and what this thing is capable of doing, an equivalent PC side, like, is ridiculously expensive. So even at $600, it's still cheaper than like a PC in theory to do a lot of the same kind of things. And I knew that number was crazy high, but I was like, you know what? These parts, and it's like, unless they're just like really eating costs, I can't fathom how they can do it. I believe they can, but I can't fathom it, so I'm going to say $600. Obviously, nobody thinks that that's going to happen because of the whole... If nothing else, they don't want to have the whole $599 US. They don't want to go down that road. So, fair enough. What do you think they're going to go out on the stage on E3 or whenever it is and say, and it costs blah? What is that going to be?
Whatever it is, they are going to eat the cost. Because if you look at hardware cost, comparing it to, again, a PC, 12 gigs of RAM, of GDDR5 RAM, is expensive. Last time I checked, I think it was somewhere around, for 8 gigs, like $300 for 8. So 12 is probably another couple hundred. I mean, just in the RAM cost, then you're at your $500 mark, right? So adding to that,
now they do have the benefit of that they'll be buying in bulk,
right?
And working with strategic partners, and they've like custom built a lot of the stuff, so they have advantages to like help it like reduce that impact. But yeah, I agree with you. They've got to be in the hole on the hardware.
And also looking at the other things inside of this thing, which is kind of weird. So that they're making this premium system, but they're not putting a solid state drive in it, which is odd. But I'll go with
it's odd, but it's also not, because that would really make it expensive. Because they don't want less than a terabyte. I mean, this generation has shown us 500 gigabytes is a joke. Granted, you can do the whole like external hard drive, but like if you're going to put an SSD and then cap it at 500, like that's just the world's worst tease.
Yeah.
Like, that would be horrible.
True. I mean, yeah, so there's that, but I think that maybe a hybrid drive would have been a good pull, because I think in the Xbox Elite, the Xbox One Elite that they released, that had a hybrid drive in it. So I'm surprised that they didn't announce that yet. So kind of weird. But the other things to consider are a graphics card that would be able to push out this kind of content on its own.
Expensive.
Yeah, it costs at least about probably $400 on just the card. And
at least.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, I'm in Canadian dollars. Never mind.
Well, American dollars. It's probably like 600 Canadian.
$1,500.
So,
oh man, y'all get so raked over the coals. That's so bad.
I know. Did you guys know that if you were in Canada and you waited out on the PlayStation 4, you actually ended up paying more later? Like, usually, like, I don't want to buy the console right out the gate because I know the price will go down. The price went up 7 months later.
Wow.
So I actually got totally screwed on that. But anyways, that's beside the point.
But then, so you take into the factor power supplies, motherboard costs, operating system costs if you want to do that too. A PC of this caliber would cost you a minimum, I would say, of $1,300 to $1,500.
Oh yeah,
just as a minimum. So there's no way it's going to come out that expensive. But I think if they came out at $400, that would drop the mic. That would put them on the map. They would become capital of Gamer City, and everybody would be flocking to them. That would be the buzz, right? Even if they can do $450, I think they would get that buzz. If they do anything
because
above $450,
because the Pro's $399.
What's that?
American is the Pro $399?
Yes, $399.
It came out at $399. Yeah.
So that's the comparison, right? It has to be related. It has to be in that ballpark.
Mm-hmm. And was the Pro
a terabyte drive? Here's where it's going to get crazy, is because it's launching the Scorpio right now. They've said launching holiday 2017. That could be November, December. We don't really know for sure. Just somewhere in that time frame. I could absolutely see PlayStation coming out and being like, and bam, we're $299 now for Pro. And it's like, geez, really? And like that, granted, they're still not going to win the performance debate. Mm-hmm. They're not going to. They can't. So I could totally see them pulling that, because that's really their only play to make. I mean, they have the player base on their side in terms of like, maybe that's where your friends are because we already have this huge player base. So they do have that, but it's like the only other thing that they can compete-wise or to make you double, like, think twice about it if you haven't made a purchase is drop the price by like $100. I could, even though it's only a year in its lifespan, I could totally see Sony doing that. Mm-hmm. That's so something Sony would do.
Mm-hmm. What about a crazy like subsidized model where like we're starting to see an interesting idea. Subscriptions get crazy. We've got EA Access, we've got Games with Gold, we're having Game Pass being introduced, and that's a $10 a month thing. What if they had kind of like a, I don't even know what you call it, just this all-encompassing thing that gives you everything, and when you subscribe to that, it maybe takes some of the price down off of the purchase of the console. I don't know. Like, that starts to get into the way that cell phones kind of do it as well. Yeah. But I could really see Microsoft get creative with the way that they charge for this thing, knowing that, kind of, Nathan, what you're saying, this thing should cost a boatload. But there are ways Microsoft has other areas of their business, especially with operating systems and Office and licensing agreements that they have there. There are different ways to get your money. And this is something that Nintendo is finally learning, where their money came in from console and software, and that was it. Meanwhile, PlayStation and Xbox are like, well, we've got recurring revenue coming in each and every month. That could subsidize the cost of the Scorpio, and they haven't said that's not happening. So it'd be interesting to see if that happens, how people would react to something like that.
And we will have the benefit of at least since we still have places to buy hardware, like a GameStop or a Best Buy, there will be some kind of program, if not officially affiliated with Microsoft. They'll be like, hey, bring in your Xbox One S and we'll give you $150 off the Scorpio or whatever. So there's going to be that benefit as well. But
I'll be doing it.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you, are you going to keep yours or are you going to trade yours in, Sean?
No, I'll trade it in. I actually picked up this is the funny thing. I'm agnostic, but I actually have 3 PlayStation 4s in the house. Chelsea and I each have one, and we just picked one up off of Craigslist because it was like $200, which in Canada is probably like a
5
dime
cents
for you guys. Like, it was super cheap. And we just have that on kind of
got to get Link started early, right? Lincoln's got to get started early.
we were playing Persona 5 earlier tonight, so I'm definitely going to be using the additional hardware that I've got to trade up. I don't need an Xbox One S and a Scorpio. At least I've not been convinced that that's a thing for me. But the S has been awesome for me. I traded the original. I had like the day one edition of the original Xbox, or at least close to, kind of like you, Chris, like a couple months in. I traded that for the One S and didn't regret it at all. I will do the same for Scorpio because I truly believe this is going to be the real deal. And I could also trade in my extra PlayStation and just
that's true. You
come
could.
off clean. So
And your Wii U.
So I'm on the record.
I could do that too. We got 2 Wii U's, so
yeah, you could. I'm on the record, $600. What do you guys say?
I think $400. I think what you said, Chris, is a massive risk. The fact that they could come out and announce a price and the next day PlayStation says the PS4 Pro is now $100 less. And that'd be very, very bad for them.
Yeah,
so
it would be horrible to be $300 more expensive than your most direct competition. That'd be a killer.
Yeah.
If they want to walk off the stage with a mic drop, it has to be $400. It has to be. You do that, you're going to sell these things out. And everyone's going to buy them. Not even just gamers. People who just want this hardware is going to buy it and then mod whatever they want to onto it. They'll just install their versions of whatever and just use this hardware because this is going to be something that you could probably use outside of gaming for a lot of different things. So I think that if they come out with $400, that's how they win. They win E3. They win the year if they do that because they'll get so many gamers that were undecided on this Pro Scorpio kind of thing that were waiting for that decision. If it's within $50 of the Scorpio or the Pro, because they'll probably drop it by 50. I would guarantee they do that, like you said, Chris.
Mm-hmm. That's probably more realistic.
Yeah. If they're within $50, it's a no-brainer. You're getting all the content that you want, and plus, if they come out with this and it's somebody who's been a PS4 gamer this entire generation and maybe even
and doesn't have an Xbox, finally ready to hey, I want to be a dual system owner here,
or they didn't even have a 360 and they got this catalog of 360 games they can play that are classic games that are exclusives. I think that is a huge argument to make right now because look at the way that they position themselves. If they drop a $400 price tag, $10 Game Pass to get the games that people have missed on and can now jump in and start playing these games for $10 a month, EA Access that has this huge catalog of games right now, including backwards compatible games, and the games with gold they continue to give out, there is so much of an argument to be made that you can come and not even buy a game, have access to 100+ games right off the bat, and fully enjoy your experience. And if you can do that at a $400 price point, you're just gonna win. And we haven't even announced this. The announcements that they've made, the positioning that they're moving them into ahead of E3, they just announced the game returns. They're the first console to make the self-service game return process possible. Mm-hmm. They've done all these gamer-friendly announcements before E3. What are they going to announce at E3? This is EA Games Pass was E3 caliber.
This is why I'm saying, it's got to be games, because they've got all this other stuff out of the way. Mm-hmm. It's what else are they going to talk about if not games? Mm-hmm. It's got to be. So there's got to be a few new IPs or something that. They've got to have something.
Which we know Crackdown's coming out this year. Sea of Thieves is coming out this year. New Forza Motorsport's probably going to come out and showcase that.
But I mean something that we don't know about.
That's what I mean. That's that conversation we keep going back into. None of that sound Sea of Thieves doesn't sound like a savior to
Sean,
me. Crackdown
have you not seen all the content for Sea of Thieves?
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be good, but it needs something that knocks it out of the park, man. It needs something massive. And I like that we have this
they need a Bloodborne. Like when
Yes.
Bloodborne hit, even people who are like, I'm not really a Souls person, they were still like, dang,
That was
man,
me.
that was good. That was
was me.
good. You know, I mean, they need a bam. You see that logo of that developer, you're like, and like, what is this game?
What
And
if Amy Hennig's Star Wars game is exclusive to Xbox?
that could happen.
EA
That could
is their
absolutely
key.
do it because PlayStation's got the deal for Battlefront. And the exclusivity and all that in terms of like getting the stuff first and the marketing deal and all that kind of stuff. And then this game, to go back to what I said earlier, would not bother me at all if they did it because this is a brand new game that hasn't existed before. So you want to go straight Xbox, do it.
'Cause they did
I
that
will be
with-
fine with that, and it'll be even more reason for me to get a Scorpio.
Knights of the Old Republic. Remember, console exclusive on Xbox.
Yep. I mean, that could be a bomb drop right there. You're like blowing my mind now. I hadn't even gone there yet.
Well,
I like
I
that.
see your posters in the background. I'm just like, I see in my background,
Yes.
I got my Star Wars stuff too. It's like, you know what? If they capitalize on Star Wars in any way, because we already saw that the PS4 logos on the trailers for Battlefront, which everybody wants to play that, but
Yes.
everybody also wants to play a single player Star Wars game. And if they can somehow lock that up as an exclusive or some sort of deal, I think that's a really compelling reason. Put that with the best console on the market, you're gonna get Star Wars gamers for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That would
Battlefront's
be a
gonna look great.
really good play. Yeah, that would be a really good move. I kind of like that idea. I'm hoping you're right now the more I think about it. That's really nice. All right, well, awesome. So I think we kind of touched a little bit on everything. We did say that we're all planning to get one, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like I'm planning to get one. I don't think I'm going to be a launch day guy, just because I want to wait it out a little bit. Unfortunately for myself, I don't really have to worry too much about if I wait 6 months, it's going to be more expensive. At least I don't think that's going to be the case here.
I should say mine comes with a little bit of a disclaimer. Like I was saying the same thing about Neo before the Pro was announced. I was like, I'm all in. If it's more powerful and all these other different things, I was excited to give PlayStation more money. And they flubbed that presentation so badly that I'm like, I'm good. I actually don't need that. And they still refuse to add a PlayStation Network name. I couldn't add a external hard drive to the back of it. Like and the digital refunds.
Well, you can
that
add the
talked
hard
about.
drive now.
You
They
can.
did patch that in. Yeah.
And it actually is only worthwhile on the Pro because it's the only one with the rear-facing USB.
I
There's
totally
no
agree
way
with
in
that.
hell I'm putting an external hard drive on my current
No,
PS4.
both of
with
on my original PlayStation 4, it's like the two front ports. It's like because I have multiple controllers, and so I'm using one, and then the other one's charging while I'm doing that, and I just have them on this rotation. So I have one cable doing that, and then the other one's connected to my base station for my headset. It's like my ports are used. I got nowhere to hang one. I mean, I have a Pro now, so now I could put one on the back. But I was just like, man, when the Pro came out, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. I'm so thankful that they put another port on the back. That was the smartest thing Xbox did. We give you all these USB ports.
Are they USB 3.0?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
they're required to be for when you plug in the drive, and the drive has to be 3.0 as well, just to be able to have a decent enough speed to play a game off of it if you were going to.
Yeah.
So it depends. I'm not a guarantee, but I am leaning towards getting one. It's really Microsoft's game to mess up at this point. I like all the optimism that I'm hearing about it, or a lot of the optimism. Microsoft hasn't really earned the reputation that Nintendo has, where we go, they'll probably mess it up. It's probably gonna be awful.
Yeah, that's true. They haven't. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for jumping on here and kind of talking a little bit of Xbox Scorpio with me. I really liked bringing different perspectives from everybody, and myself being PlayStation, and then the Xbox guy and the agnostic guy. Those are a lot of fun. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys for jumping on, and I'll see you guys in the next round.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, what is up? I am back. And you're probably wondering why that is. Well, the reason for that is because I am pretty new to this whole hosting a panel thing, and I did not do a very good job this go around by letting my wonderful guests, who were so gracious to come on and talk some Scorpio with me, kind of just promote themselves and the stuff that they do and talk about where you can find them online and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for them. Nathan Thomas, his Twitter handle one more time is @voicedbynathan, all one word, obviously. And he has his own podcast called That's Entertaining. You can find it. It's on iTunes. I think it may be on Google Play as well. A lot of other places. He's also a member of the PSVG team. That stands for Play Some Video Games. They have a website where they do reviews. They podcast a lot. So be sure and check out those things that Nathan does. He does a lot of really cool stuff with them, and he's a really good guy, so I think you should check out his stuff. And then we have Sean Capri. One more time, his Twitter handle is @SeanCapri, all one word again, all lowercase. I don't know if case matters on Twitter, but his is all lowercase. He is a writer and podcaster for WeTheNerdy.com. His individual podcast that he does for WeTheNerdy.com is called We The Gamercast, and it's a really, really great show where he just, as he says, has sweet hangs with a stranger from the internet every week. So go and check it out. He does really great interviews. He is also on If We Ran Nintendo with the Nintendo Guru, which definitely, if you're into Nintendo stuff, you should go and check out that podcast. And Sean Capri is like one of these guys that just kind of pops up everywhere. So he's on a lot of other shows. He guests pretty often. So you just hit him up on Twitter and you'll be able to find all the crazy stuff that he's got his hands in, because the man likes to pump out his content. So thank you so much to my wonderful guests for coming on the show. I hope that you guys out there enjoyed it, and hit these guys up and go check out what they're doing, because they're doing some really cool stuff.